Brothers, sisters, let us talk about the physical and spiritual
evolution of man. Now, it is up to every single generation to move forward to the overall goal of us breaking our chains as human beings. Now, what chains are we bound by? Have we been bound by since the very beginning? These are the chains of the limitations of our body and the limitations of our imagination. Now, when it comes to the chains of our material body, we have to understand that our consciousness has the potential to unfetter itself. Humanity has the potential to go beyond its conception of itself, its understanding of itself. And we have shown, well, the universe has shown through evolution and our study of it, that beings do evolve physically. They evolve physically into more effective realms of perception and existence. Now, I say realms because only our conception of ourselves is our truth, because we can't imagine, we can't understand everything yet. But as we as human beings continue to use our brains more than our muscle, our ideas more than our physical carnality, we will start to find that over the coming thousands of years, we will see a physical evolution that is the same as the evolution that we've been through before, but in a different direction. Before, evolution for many animals, for many plants, was about survival. Now, as we accept that our role is not to just survive, but thrive in the realms of consciousness, to expand our own consciousness, and to be the shepherds of this world, as we move forward in that, our physical bodies will naturally follow suit if we go away from the law of the jungle. Now, the law of the jungle is might is right, that the strong are good. Now, there are still people throughout this world that hold us back from our physical evolution because they are working towards the law of the jungle. They are embracing the law of the jungle. They are trying to set men back. They're trying to set humanity back. Now, do I think that our ideas, our human consciousness has an effect on our physical evolution, which it seems to be what I'm saying? I absolutely believe it does. What we as human beings do physically with our brains has an effect on the evolution that will take place. As we rely less on our physical brawn, we will start to see the universe respond and say, okay, you are ready, and we will follow evolution. We will continue to climb this ladder, assuming we don't kill each other before then. As long as we continue to become less and less violent and more reliant upon not animal meats, but sustainable plants and vegetables, basically. Well, vegetables are plants. Now, working away from being omnivorous and to being vegetarians at least, and then vegans, our bodies will respond with a whole new chemistry. Our children will not have these corrupted chemicals they place in meat, and affects babies in the womb, and certainly affects us. But much more depressingly, it affects our children in the wombs of women when they eat foods and meats that are pumped with all these preservatives and chemicals, meant to allow them to last longer. But really, in the long term, it's eating away our ability to reach towards higher degrees of consciousness, higher degrees of self-understanding, higher degrees of connection with the universe. Now, this leads into spiritual evolution. We as human beings have an ability that animals do not, that plants do not. And that is to understand physical evolution and work towards it. But what everything has the ability to do is spiritual evolution. Though it is incredibly different than plants and animals experience. Our spiritual evolution is something that everything in the universe has the ability to do. Our physical evolution, we can guide, animals and plants cannot. Our spiritual evolution, everything can ultimately guide, and this is hard to understand because how do you think of a frog conceptualizes itself? That's understandable. But in reality, it's about the focus of the soul in the shell. The ghost in the shell, if you will, is what guides even the most simplest of beasts and plants. Now, our spiritual evolution has the advantage of us being able to pass on teachings spiritual teachings, emotional teachings, intellectual teachings, from person to person, allowing every person to not just show what they mean, but to allow a spark to be kindled in the minds of those who want to follow the same spiritual path. Now, this may seem like an obvious advantage over the creatures and plants of this world, but it is an advantage that most people do not understand. They do not understand that not only can we practice, meditate, and pray ourselves, but we can learn from the wisdom of ancient sages, of ancient peoples. And yet most people do not take advantage of what has been learned from previous generations. Previous generations did all the work that they did, either spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, physically, not most of them not knowing, but all of it led to our betterment in the here and now. And we are better than our ancestors. But here's the danger. A lot of the time, well, most of the time around the world, we surrender our minds and our souls to machine men with machine hearts and machine minds. Ones that are still trying to work by the law of survival, the law of the jungle, gain more and more and more, hoard more money, hoard more power, try to gain without need. This is even a perversion of survival of the fittest, even a perversion of the evolution that most beings experience on this planet, plant and animal. This is a perversion, even more so, because we have the ability to understand greed, to understand eating too much, understand being too angry all the time. Animals and plants don't, but they only eat as much as they need to, for the most part. We, while understanding that we don't have to, most human beings still work towards the law of the jungle, try to regress humanity. We are at the precipice of a new era in which we can actually move forward based on our more correct understanding of our ancestors. Anthropology has been extending forward in leaps and bounds. Spiritual evolution has been extending as well into the void, into that which is beyond the knowledge of what we have right now. As we have methods of communication our ancestors never would have dreamed of, internet, phones that can talk across the world, and communities founded with a communication based on these lines. Being able for people across the world to share their ideas. We should take advantage of this. We should work away from survival of the fittest, away from having dictators decide for us, or oligarchs decide for us, or so-called republics of so-called representatives decide for us. We have to be a united humanity, a democratic humanity of higher consciousness. This doesn't mean forcing anything into any belief system or any tradition. This involves us truly accepting that there are more paths to greater realization of self and the unity of us all than just Christianity or Islam or just Hinduism or just Buddhism or just agnosticism, just atheism and belief in science. We have to come together and realize that all these paths are leading in the same direction. And we have to accept that machine men can no longer lead us. We have to encourage democracy around the world in a way we haven't seen in hundreds of years at the very least. Now, there have been democracies like Athens. Switzerland is very close to being a complete democracy. There are examples throughout our history, and there are flaws in those examples throughout our history, but we can learn from our mistakes. We can truly accept that we can be a united humanity and not just be different tribes, different clans, different people vying for the same resources. When people vie for the same resources, when people are selfish and hoard these resources because they fear lack, that's when the resources are used up more completely. That's when consumption, as we see nowadays in capitalism and in so-called communism working with it, and us employing China basically to make so much of what we want as a consumer society. That's when wealth and money become the goal. That's when we start to just step on each other in order to get one more leg up towards greater realization. And even greedy people, they have this urge within to become free, become spiritually free, but they misinterpret that urge and try to satisfy it through hoarding money and wealth. There is a better way. We can become a democracy of ideas, a democracy leading to higher consciousness, leading to both physical and spiritual evolution in ways that our ancestors never would have dreamed. We just have to understand that we should promote democracy, we should support humanitarianism, we should support each other in whatever the paths they have, whatever path our neighbor has, if it's different than us, whatever path somebody across the world has, and it's different than ours, but it doesn't hurt us. We should try to support each other spiritually in each other's paths. Democracy, universalism, understanding, compassion, these things can make up a new axiom for what humanity will be. We will not see a grand change within my life, but we must understand we must use our entire generation in order to further humanity as our ancestors did without even knowing it. But now we can know it, we can understand it, and we can move forward, learning from the mistakes of the past. Join me, brothers and sisters. Join me in becoming Voidist. Brothers and sisters, being Voidist is about understanding that we could be wrong, that what we understand is not everything we ever will. So, we are open to other people's ideas. We are open to learning about what will further us and not just become satisfied with what we have mentally, but try and reach ever higher degrees of consciousness. Extending that void beyond what we know further and further and further as our consciousness grows. Being Voidist, a term that I've recoined, is all about allowing and helping other people get into a position where they can freely educate themselves and follow whatever path they choose as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. People in impoverished countries where religious laws chain them to the will of their masters. We need to help those people get into a place where they can educate themselves in whatever way they want, to where they can do whatever they want as long as they do not hurt anybody else or are incredibly violent towards themselves. And perpetuate the knowledge that we have right now in whatever ways we can and further our own. That's what being Voidist is. Helping the next generation, helping our brother on the other side of the world, extending that inspiration which is inherent in humanity, understanding it through studying the ways of our ancestors, extending that inspiration by understanding our past and making the hopes of our future a reality. Brothers and sisters, join me. Be Voidist in your own way, even if you don't use that term. And together, we can make humanity something that extends beyond the stars. Thank you very much for watching. I hope all of you have a great day, and never forget yourselves.